Hey folks, this video is about geology and about the flood of Noah. From the American Journal of Science, the Dolomite Problem, control of precipitation kinetics by temperature and saturation state. What this refers to is a problem called the Dolomite Problem. It is a conundrum in geology. Geologists are unable to answer for the origin of dolomites. Here's another. This is from Sedimentology, 2009. Dolomite mountains and the origin of the dolomite rock of which they mainly consist, historical developments and new perspectives. Beginning in the late 18th century, the Dolomite Mountains in northern Italy have been the location for major sedimentology developments, from the discovery of mineral dolomite to the formulation of the coral reef hypothesis to explain the origin of the massive dolomite structures that define the splendid scenery of the region. There has been a problem since the foundations of modern geology about how do we explain dolomites. They've come up with different hypotheses, some believing that microbes, early theories were that microbes were involved in the formation of dolomites, and here's another. The Dolomite Problem, control of precipitation kinetics. This is the same paper that you saw. And this is a Dolomite mountain in northern Italy. Now, the funny thing about this, go back. The thing about this is they cannot explain how dolomite formed. Massive amounts of it in the earth. There's just no mechanism. None of their hypotheses work. The reason for this is because they're ignoring the flood of Noah. You see, the flood of Noah caused a tremendous amount of hot water to rush out of the earth, explode from the earth, and this flooded the earth. This temperature, hot water, and highly mineral-laden waters that came out of the earth are the explanation for many, many geological things. In fact, the entire topography of the earth is due to the Noachian flood. Dolomite was produced chemically by processes which are unable to account for it today. Today in the laboratory they can make small amounts of dolomite, but there's no workable hypothesis for the production of large quantities of dolomite over any period of time. You see, it was the flood of Noah that created the world's sands, that placed sand on all the beaches of the earth. The reason we have sands on the beaches. It created dolomites. It did a lot of things chemically. It produced the earth's oil. The idea of fossil fuels is a lie. Oil is not a fossil fuel. It is a chemical fuel. It was created by chemistry during the flood of Noah. Now, here's an astonishing thing. Look at this photograph. Now, see, the secular geologists ignored the flood of Noah. They say, well, it didn't really happen. It was a myth. No, it's not a myth. It's a geologic fact. The earth screams that it was flooded. That's why it's covered with an average of over 1 mile of sedimentary strata, which have clear, distinct boundaries, grain particle size distribution, and are filled with rapidly buried dead things, because the flood is a fact. But secular geologists ignore this and say it's a myth, and they cannot therefore answer for some of the things, many of the things in geology that are explained by the flood of Noah. Now here's another problem for secular geology. The mountain ranges of the earth have sedimentary materials on them. You see back in this background here, you see grass growing? And you see this? There's soil here, and there's soil here, and there's soil here. Now the secular geologists would say, well, you know, it's eroded and created soil. No. The reason, if these mountain ranges of the earth were as many millions of years old as the secular geologists claim, look, there's more sediments right here. Sedimentary material. And it's got grass growing on it. If these mountain ranges of the earth were as many millions of years old as the secular geologists claim, there could be no sedimentary material on top of them. Even here we see grass growing. Because erosion would have eroded all the sediments off the mountains long before 100 million years, much less a couple hundred million years. So how is it that we still have sedimentary material on top of all these mountains all over the world? Because the mountains are young. They're only a few thousand years old. They were created by the flood of Noah. It was the flood of Noah, the rapidly moving continents dispersing across the earth when Pangea split up because the earth split open when God opened the fountains of the great deep, that pushed the continents apart and forced the mountains up out of the earth. Secular geologists acknowledged that it was the movement of the continents that caused the pressures that pushed the mountains up out of the earth. They agree with that. They just disagree with the obvious fact that the earth has been flooded. So we could not have sedimentary strata, sedimentary materials on top of mountains anywhere on the earth if the mountains of the earth were many millions of years old. And they're claimed to be some mountain ranges older than others, but up to a couple of 100 million years old. That's preposterous. Erosion would have removed every bit of sedimentary material from the mountains. In fact, would have removed much of the mountains themselves in hundreds of millions of years. So what you're looking at is a photograph that defies secular geological claims and points to the flood of Noah. This sedimentary material on top of these mountains and all the mountains of the earth which have sediments on them are proof the mountains are not millions of years old. They're only thousands of years old. You have to question things, because the evolutionist camp, they don't want you to think for yourself. They want you to accept what you're taught without questioning, to come to believe in it. They want you to be indoctrinated into believing the earth is millions and millions and millions and millions of years old, and life is many millions of years old, and it evolved. Rock soup came alive and produced exons and chaperonins and DNA and polymerase and ribosomes. It evolved, they say. Absurd. Question what you're told. They just want to indoctrinate you because they deny the truth. The Word of God states that this they are willingly ignorant of, that the earth was flooded. Even in Paul's day, even in the Apostle Paul's day, much of the people of the earth had forgotten that the world has been globally flooded. And here it is 2,000 years later, and they still are ignorant of this fact. And there are so many features of the earth that scream the earth was flooded, that verify it for us unequivocally. But they deny it. And then they are left scratching their heads and wondering, how did the earth get so much dolomite? Because they can't form a hypothesis which explains the existence of these dolomites. None of their hypotheses work. It's been a problem in geology since the 18th century, and it still is to this day. And the flood of Noah explains it. Enjoy.